Whenever my son and I would go out and ride bikes on the road, he always wanted to hold my hand. And at first I couldn't figure out why until I noticed that he was constantly checking for cars. He was constantly looking behind his back, making sure there were no cars. And I finally realized he's afraid to be on the road without being able to feel me. And finally at one point I just stopped and I said, hey, let Daddy watch for the cars and you enjoy riding your bike. Let me pay attention to the things that could come and you just enjoy your ride. A lot of times we don't enjoy life, we don't enjoy our journey simply because we're so focused on the things that could go wrong. If we let God handle those things, we'll enjoy our lives a whole lot more. Who's supposed to watch for the cars? Me. Who's supposed to ride their bike? Huh? You. Who's supposed to enjoy the ride? Ready? Hi. Yep, it's going the other way. One time my daughter walked up to the glass door and she looked at her swing set outside and she wanted to go out and swing so much that she tried to open the door by herself, but she was really small, so she's trying to push and push and push as hard as she can on the door, not realizing that the door doesn't open by pushing. It only opens by sliding. And I was standing right behind her watching the whole thing, and I walked up, stood right behind her as she's pushing and pushing and pushing, and I'm thinking, as soon as she stops pushing, I'll open the door for her so she can go out and swing. She didn't know that I wanted to swing too. She didn't know I was standing right behind her. She thought she had to do it all on her own strength, pushing the door open to get out and go swing. Now, I stood there for quite a while just waiting for her to stop pushing. And finally she noticed that I was there and she looked up at me and she said, "Dada." And as soon as she did, I slid the door open and out we went. Now, a lot of times in our lives, we're trying to open doors by pushing them open, but they don't open that way. Sometimes we have doors that only God can open. And the harder we try to open them ourselves, the less we're actually trusting Him. I had to wait for my daughter to stop trying and start trusting before I could go and do that for her. And God sometimes is waiting for us to stop pushing, stop trying so hard, and to start trusting Him. One time we were in the bathroom and Brooklyn was stacking up the toilet paper as tall as she could get it. And my son wanted to knock the tower down, but I kept holding him. I wouldn't let him actually knock it down until she was all the way finished. And as this was happening, I thought about the story of Abraham and Sarah, how God had given them a promise. And Sarah came up with her own idea of how to make it happen. And it didn't turn out too good for them. And I thought, you know, Abraham had to wait for Sarah to start believing before he could actually see his promise fulfilled. Just like he had to wait for his sister to get all the way finished building the tower before I would let him knock it down. There's sometimes where we're not waiting on God, God's not waiting on us, we're waiting on other people to get in place for our promises to happen, for our dreams to come true. Kick it, kick it. Oh. As a dad, anytime my baby cries whenever he's asleep or in his room, I always go in there and check on him, make sure he's okay, see what he needs, try to find out what's going on. But when I first became a father, I found myself going into my kids' room, not just when they cried, but I would go in whenever I wanted to. I would go in, I would just rub their skin, I would just look at them, I would just speak into their lives, whisper things into their ears. And I wasn't going in because they needed me or because they cried out to me or they called me. I was going in simply because I wanted to be with them. I was going in because I love them so much and I just wanted to be with them. God is our Father, and of course He comes to us when we call Him. Of course He comes when we need Him. But more than that, He comes in because He loves us and He wants to be with us. He wants to whisper in our ears even when we're not paying attention. He's a good Father. He doesn't just come when we call. He comes because He wants to. One morning we were trying to get out the door and get to school when I was running a little bit behind. Actually, I had a really important meeting I was running late for. And you know how it goes. The more you're running late, the more you're rushing your kids to get in the car. And I was rushing my daughter. She's getting more frustrated. I'm getting more frustrated. It's taking forever. When all of a sudden I get interrupted by this thought from God. What's more important? My connection to my kids or being on time? And I knew my connection to my kids is more important. And as soon as I thought that, all the pressure left, all the stress, let's get you in. And all the pressure left my daughter, and she jumped right in the car. I buckled her up, and off we went. Now, I was late for my meeting that day, but so was the person I was meeting with. At least I still had my connection with my girl. Now, when you're running behind schedule and you're trying to get your kids in the car, just remember, your connection with them is more important than being on time to where you're going. One night in the winter, my wife was outside taking care of the horses, and we both went outside to just play, and she loved horses too, so she wanted to be out there. But as soon as we got outside, I realized how freezing cold it had gotten, and I thought, I need to take her inside so I can put her jacket on, put her socks on. So I took her in, and as soon as I picked her up to bring her inside, she starts yelling, screaming, kicking. You were so mad at me. And I realized you didn't know what I was doing. So I told her, you're about to see my heart for you. You wanna put that on? So I get her inside, I put her socks on, I bundle her all up, I get her jacket on, I get her hat on, I get her mittens on, and I take her back outside, and then I tell her, I said, hey, I didn't bring you inside so that you couldn't play out there, so you couldn't be with mom, you couldn't be with the horse. I brought you inside so you could be out there longer. That's how God is with us. Sometimes preparing for our dreams takes a lot longer than we wish it would. But God's always preparing us so that our dreams can be sustainable. Not so we can step into them for just a little while, but so we can live in our dreams for a really long time. As parents, there are times where we actually walk away from our kids, but it's never to leave them, it's always to lead them. And it's the same with God. There are times He will walk away from us, but you need to know, He doesn't walk away to leave. He only walks away to lead you further into what He has for you. Oh, I lost you. Come on. My family and I live on a farm, and a farm has a lot of work. We got horses, we have chickens, we have dogs and cats and goats. And at one point, we built a barn to try to hold all of the things we need for farm life, and that barn was so much work. But later we brought a photographer in. She took a bunch of pictures of our family, took a bunch of pictures of the barn, took pictures of everything. And as I was going back through the pictures, I noticed how beautiful farm life really is. I noticed how beautiful our barn is, and at the same time I noticed I needed to see my life through a different lens in order to see the beauty that was there all along. Sometimes with our family, there's so much work involved. We got dishes, we got diapers, we got laundry, we have all kinds of work. And if we're not careful, we'll only see everything in our family through the lens of work, and we'll start missing the beautiful parts of family life. If you in your family are only seeing all the work that's involved, I challenge you to look through a different lens. Make sure you still see the beautiful things in life. Make sure you still see the beauty in having a family. Just recently it snowed here in Northern California. As you can tell, it's really, really beautiful behind me. But it snowed here, and we had all these plans, all these things we were gonna do, and we just dropped everything. We went outside and we went sledding. We built snowmen, we threw snowballs, we let the snow interrupt everything we were doing. You know, the Bible actually says, as the rain comes down and the snow from heaven and waters the earth that it brings forth and buds, so shall God's word be that goes forth out of His mouth. And when God speaks, we need to have the same attitude as when it snows. That we let God's word interrupt everything we're doing. We let God's word interrupt our plans. We let God's word interrupt our schedules, and we drop everything to interact with God's word.